Hi there, it's me again, Lavanya. We are continuing our thought process on Unmai vilakkam. We are in the 26th verse right now. If you just do a small recap, the disciple was asking a question about what are the 36 tattvams for which the Guru had explained one by one in a very vivid manner. Later, the question that was posted was, what is Arnavam, what is Kanmam? And for Arnavam, Guru mentioned it as ignorance, and Kanmam is whatever deeds. So basically, whatever we are performing right now, the good or bad, cause and effect, right? So the effect of the good and bad deeds are coming in as karma. The next question that was posted to the Guru was the very simple question, yet very profound question: who am I? And almost in 2 to 3 verses, the Guru is trying to explain the answer for the question, who am I? So the first statement was, there is something which has natural intelligence, and there is something called as unnatural intelligence, and there is something called as no intelligence. So the natural intelligence is called as Padi. Unnatural intelligence, which means we learn by practice, we learn by reading books, or we learn by seeing someone's experience, or we learn by our own experience. Either way, this is unnatural in nature. We pick up on the way, it is not given to us by nature. So that is called as unnatural intelligence. And the third one that we are talking about is totally no intelligence, which is basically all the non-living things around us, and that is what we called it as 36 tattvam. And that earlier verse that we discussed was very simple. The Guru was mentioning there are 6 tastes around us, which is sweet, salt, spice, sour, etc., etc. And these kind of tastes cannot realize that it has that taste. Basically, the taste is not even realizing or recognizing its own taste. So sweet doesn't know that it is sweet in nature. Salt doesn't know that it is salt in nature. So it doesn't really recognize its own attribute, its own characteristic. Similar to that, when you talk about the 36 tattvam, it doesn't realize its own characteristic. So what is the most important one is, we need to have someone else who can really interpret this, and that is what we call it as the soul. And today's verse is actually explaining that. Let's look at the song. Verse number 26. aaru suvaiyum arundhi அவை தம்மை வேறு ஒருவன் கூறியிடும் மேன்மை போல் ஆறாரும் ஒன்று ஒன்றா நாடி உணர்ந்து ஓதில் அதில் உற்றறிவாய் நின்ற பொருள்தானே காண் நீ. The first analogy that was used is repeated here as well, which is the 6 tastes. Why is this analogy used? If you remember, it's a very profound one, which is our food habit. We would have just completed our lunch, and it would have been a very sumptuous lunch, yet the moment we see another food, we feel tempted. Even a sweet, we feel tempted. Even an ice cream, we feel tempted. Because the urge for eating more is always there in a natural way, which is also a natural instinct. It's an animal instinct anyways. So that is why the taste has been taken as an example over here, as an analogy to explain the concept. So if you look at it, the tastes don't realize their own attributes. So here the Guru says, aaru suvaiyum arundhi அவை தம்மை வேறு ஒருவன் கூறியிடும் மேன்மை போல். There must be someone else who tastes it, and then he says, yeah, it is sour in nature, it is spicy in nature, it is saltish in nature. So you need to have someone who can recognize the taste. Similar to that, the 36 tattvam is also a non-living thing. It doesn't have a natural intelligence, but we need to have someone who can interpret the characteristics of these tattvam. And the person who interprets the characteristic is what we call it as the soul. And you are basically the soul. You look at the way how the answers have been framed. The first question was, who am I? And just as a recap of all the three verses, who am I? I am someone who can interpret. There are 36 tattvam, and what are all those? So basically, I am in a position to interpret the characteristics of the 36 tattvam. The reason being, 36 tattvams cannot go ahead and understand its own characteristics because it doesn't have natural intelligence, or rather it has no intelligence rather, and at the same time it doesn't really it's a non-living thing, so it cannot act on its own, so it cannot recognize its own characteristic, and hence there must be someone else who can interpret the characteristic, and that is what we are classifying over here as our guru's explanation, to say you are someone who doesn't have no intelligence. You do have intelligence, but it is not natural in form. What do we mean by natural and unnatural? Natural intelligence comes all at once, something like the Almighty. He doesn't need to be in one place to have an understanding. He doesn't need to go through a book to learn something. Rather, the unnatural intelligence comes in based on some kind of experience. So, you pick up the experience, you pick up the knowledge and skill based on practice, or based on experience, or based on learning. So, human beings are having unnatural intelligence. We are still having the intelligence, but it is unnatural in nature, and at the same time we are in a right position to interpret the characteristics of the non-living beings, which is the tattvams. So this is in short the answer for the question, who am I? I'll come back again with the next verse very soon. Until then, bye bye.